Hello everyone and welcome back to Teaching with Tania. If you have started classes already, congrats. But I'm not sure when I'm posting this video, so hopefully you've been in classes, started your spring semester off right. If you are in college and you wanting to know how to write your research papers or how I write my research papers in college, then stay tuned for this video. When writing research papers, they can be very hard, and it took me a little bit to adjust to the college way of writing research papers as opposed to writing in high school. I have changed my process up a lot, and thank God I've had professors to sit down with me and actually tell me what they wanted in their research papers when I was writing them, to fully understand and to write them correctly and to the best of my ability. You first want to figure out the formatting. If it's APA, MLA, all those other formattings out there, those are the ones that I'm comfortable with, or the ones that my field education uses the most. So those are the ones I'm familiar with, but there are a bunch other out there that I didn't even know that other fields use and other professions use. But figure out what formatting you want, because that is going to be crucially important when doing your research. And then the second thing you need to do is, whatever topic you're researching or whatever question you want to find out, figure out how you're going to organize your research. So if you're doing an annotated bibliography, or if you're just gathering evidence for two opposing sides, figure out how you want to track the information you have. Maybe it's just a running note sheet or actual notes in your phone to know, okay, I'm using this source to back up this source. Oh, this is what I found when I was reading this article. So or this journal article, whatever. Just make sure that you're documenting what you have and where you're finding your research from, because later on down the writing process, you're going to have to cite your sources, and if you don't know where you got any of your information from, then you're going to have to backtrack, double back, and it's going to take you more time. Trust me, I know. The next thing you want to do is outline how your paper should go, or how you want your paper to flow. Sometimes we can just get to writing and the paper makes no logical sense. It's not connecting, the points aren't giving what it was supposed to have gave, because there is no organization to what we're writing. So having that logical outline, whether you need your counter arguments or you want point 1, point 2, point 3, it can go so many different ways. So I'm trying to give you guys all the possible ways, but I can't even think of them at the top of my head. But outline your paper for sure. And when I was in high school, I was like, why are we outlining our papers? I don't need to know. I just thought it was a waste of time. I didn't think I needed to do it. But I have learned that outlining my papers have brought my papers to a whole different level, because not only can I understand what I'm reading and what to research for, whether it's the counter argument, the main claim, the main point, or a sub point, or a counter argument, whatever it is, I need to make sure that where it's placed in my research, it makes logical sense, if that makes sense. Once you found your formatting and how you're going to outline and conduct your research, maybe doing a preliminary Google search, or just run through of what topics are out there. What research is out there on what I'm trying to figure out. Just go through, like my professor called it, like speed dating real quick. Just speed date. Look, see what information is out there, and if there's enough evidence for what you're trying to research or what you're trying to prove. The next step I would encourage you to do is look back at the instructions or the rubric of what your professor is asking for, and making sure that with your outline and with the research you have done, if it lines up with the rubric. I've had people, especially the job I worked at on campus, people come into my office and what they were writing about was they were so gung-ho and passionate about it, but it wasn't what the professor was asking for, and I feel so bad telling them, you need to redo this, because it's just not lining up. So make sure that you're what you're researching and what you have to do in writing about, if that lines up with what your professor is asking for. That point leads into my next one, because if it's informational, persuasive, whatever your purpose of writing, you need to find that target audience. And this also brought my paper writing to a whole nother level, because knowing who you're writing for changes it tremendously. If you're writing for a politician, or if you're writing for an educational firm or a research facility, it changes the way you're writing because you use different terminology. You may also have to use different background information to set your audience up to what your research paper is for, or what your paper in general is for. Finding my target audience has also made me like to write, because as an education major, I may be writing, if I'm writing something to my principal or to a school district, that may look different when I'm writing to a parent who may not have all the educational background or education that I may have. So it just may look a little different. So honing in on that early in the writing process is key. Once you find your target audience or figure out the purpose of why you're writing, you then need to get your thoughts out on paper. You've done the research, you've outlined everything. Now just get it out on paper. Sometimes, like, I used to get caught up on, oh, I need to make sure this is 10 pages. I make sure I'm get like 9.5 or get exactly 10 pages. But I realized that once I just let my mind go and just type and write, whatever I think, whatever comes to mind, whatever I want to expand upon in my points or for my outline, just letting it go. Not worrying about the page limit, all the other stuff. Like, yeah, I understand, like, okay, this is, keep that in mind to a certain extent. By the end of the day, just let your thoughts flow. And that has made me enjoy the writing process and research process a lot more, because my thoughts are just flowing, and I'm no longer trying to make sure I have this, and make sure it's perfect, but instead, like, get my point across to my target audience in the best way possible. Then the next step would be editing your paper, whether it's this wording is a little weird, or maybe this chunk or this paragraph would go better here, or maybe this quote, citation, whatever will go better here. Ooh, this is a sentence and I maybe need to back that up with more research and make sure my claims are logical reasonings, and what I am stating backs up what actually is in my research. So making sure like all aligns and it flows is like this part of the editing process. And then you can go on to proofreading and reading for grammatical errors, and making sure within like this editing process, if your professor says it needs to be 10 pages or 12 pages or 15 pages, making sure it is that amount of length, including spacing, single space, double space, and your margins are correct, and making sure it's in the correct format that it's supposed to be in. In this stage of writing, you get more technical, and you can actually nitpick what you're writing, because at the end of the day, the content's already there. It's just like fine-tuning it, if that makes sense. Once you have fine-tuned it, proofread it, and did the best that you can with it, I would suggest giving it to a friend or the writing center on campus, if you guys have a writing center, making sure that what you thought is set in your head, or like what you researched, like making sure it all aligns, because we may work on papers for like days or weeks at a time, and then you get tired, or you just look over mistakes that is a mistake, but your brain has looked at it so many times it looks correct to you. That has happened to me as well. So just giving a second eye and making sure that it looks right and it is presentable to your professor will be beneficial. Then I also suggest you reread it for like a final read before you submit it, because you may be catching things that after you didn't look at it for a couple of days, you come back with a fresh mind, you've had some sleep, and you're not so focused on grammatical and getting the content down. You can actually just look at it for what it is, your research, as a final presentation, and just reread it one last time. Make sure it's good in the way you want it. You may have missed something. Your second reader, the second person looking at your, the second reader, whoever was looking at it, may have missed something as well. So just taking a final look at it, make sure it matches with the rubric as well, and all the criteria are met, and you have your bibliography, your works cited, whatever you may need on that final research paper. One tip that I would suggest, it sounds a little weird, but reading your paper backwards at this point, because just for one last grammatical error, one last check, because when you're reading your paper, you may already know what comes next, so you're just reading, but you're not really catching anything. So reading it backwards, sentence by sentence, okay, so this is my paper, this is the sentence, read it correctly, okay, that sentence makes grammatical sense. The next sentence, this sentence makes grammatical sense. It may be a little weird at first, but I have catched so many other grammar mistakes that I know my professors would have took points off of if I didn't reread it for that last proofread. And once you read it for the last time, you can go ahead and submit it, because this is like the best feeling, especially on Canvas, if your school has Canvas, and all the firecrackers come because you submitted your work and you've been working on it for however long. Research takes a long time, longer than I've ever expected. So I've learned to start maybe a month or weeks ahead of time so that I can go through all these stages and make sure my research paper is the way it's supposed to be. I hope these tips were really beneficial because I struggled writing research papers and I literally hated writing. But once I found my target audience and continued to perfect my papers, I have come to enjoy writing them and doing the research behind them, especially with education. So that is all I have for you guys today in this video. If this video was beneficial to you, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys in my next one.